My hand was trembling so violently that the glass of Chardonnay I was holding spilled onto the pristine white carpet, leaving a stain that looked disturbingly like fresh blood. But I couldn't move to clean it up. I couldn't breathe. I was frozen behind the heavy velvet curtains of the living room, pressing my body against the cold window pane, listening. Just 5 meters away, in the hallway, my husband, Alistair, was whispering. His voice wasn't the warm baritone melody I had fallen in love with 10 years ago. It was sharp, urgent, and laced with a familiarity that made my stomach churn. "She suspects nothing, Vanessa. You need to be patient," Alistair hissed. "Once the adoption papers are finalized next week, the trust fund unlocks. That's $5 million. We just need to play happy family for a few more days." Then came a woman's voice, smooth, smoky, and terrifyingly calm. It was the social worker, the woman who was supposed to be evaluating our fitness as parents. "I don't like how she looks at him, Alistair. She tried to hug him today. It made my skin crawl. He's my son." "He's our ticket," Alistair corrected her, his voice dropping an octave. "Keep it together. Genevieve is desperate. She's blind with grief. She'll sign anything I put in front of her." I felt the world tilt on its axis. The man I worshipped, the woman I trusted to give me a child, and the little boy upstairs I had already started to love, it was all a play, and I was the puppet. But as the tears burned my eyes, a cold rage began to replace the sorrow. They thought I was weak. They thought I was just a broken woman with an empty womb and a heavy checkbook. They were about to find out exactly who they were dealing with. To understand how I ended up hiding behind my own curtains, terrified and furious, you have to understand the silence. That's what our marriage had become over the last 5 years. A deafening, suffocating silence. My name is Genevieve. I am 42 years old, and for the last decade, I have lived in a golden cage. My husband, Alistair, was the architect of my world. He was handsome in that devastating old money way, silver at the temples, bespoke suits that smelled of sandalwood and expensive tobacco, and a smile that could disarm a bomb squad. We lived in a sprawling estate in the countryside, a place of manicured hedges and high ceilings, purchased with the inheritance my father had left me. Alistair was a consultant. To this day, I couldn't tell you exactly what he consulted on, but he was always busy, always important, and always managing my finances. I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He was the one who held me when the first pregnancy failed. He was the one who wiped my tears after the 3rd round of IVF resulted in nothing but clinical depression and a bruised body. "We don't need biology to be a family, Genevieve," he had said to me 6 months ago, stroking my hair as I stared blankly at the ceiling of our master bedroom. "There are so many children who need us, who need you." It was the lifeline I needed. The idea of adoption had always scared me. The bureaucracy, the intrusion, but Alistair made it sound like a fairy tale. He told me he had connections. He knew a private, elite agency that specialized in placing special cases with high net worth families. "No red tape," he promised, kissing my forehead. "Just us and a child." The process moved with a speed that, in hindsight, should have been a screaming red flag, but I was blinded by hope. I started decorating the nursery. I bought soft pastel wallpapers, a vintage rocking horse, and piles of clothes that smelled of fresh cotton and promise. That was when I met Vanessa. She arrived at our estate on a rainy Tuesday in November. She was the case manager from the agency, New Horizons. She didn't look like a social worker. She looked like a runway model who had taken a wrong turn into social services. She wore a trench coat that cinched tightly at her waist, revealing a figure that was sharp and predatory. Her hair was a glossy raven black, pulled back into a severe bun, and her lips were painted a deep oxblood red. "Mrs. Sterling," she said, extending a hand that was ice cold. "Alistair has told me so much about you." "Not Mr. Sterling, Alistair." I brushed it off. I was too nervous. Behind her, clinging to the hem of her coat, was a boy, Leo. He was 7 years old, with messy brown curls and eyes that were so dark they looked like endless tunnels. He looked frightened, small, and utterly heartbreaking. My maternal instinct, which had been dormant and aching for years, roared to life instantly. "Hello, Leo," I whispered, dropping to my knees so I could be at his eye level. "I'm Genevieve." He didn't speak. He just stared at me. Then his eyes darted to Alistair. A strange look passed between them. Not the look of a stranger meeting a new guardian, but something else. A flicker of recognition? Fear? "He's shy," Vanessa said quickly, placing a hand on Leo's shoulder. Her nails were long and manicured, digging slightly into the fabric of his sweater. "He's had a difficult placement history. He needs stability. Alistair assured me you could provide that." "We can," I said, tears pricking my eyes. "We absolutely can." The first few weeks were a blur of awkward adjustments and small victories, or so I thought. Leo moved into the room I had prepared. I tried everything to bond with him. I cooked his favorite meals, or what Alistair told me were his favorites. I read him stories. I bought him Lego sets. But Leo remained distant. He was like a feral cat. He would accept the food, play with the toys when I wasn't looking, but the moment I entered the room, he would freeze. Except with Alistair. One evening, about 3 weeks after Leo arrived, I was walking past the library. The heavy oak doors were slightly ajar. Inside, the fire was crackling. I heard laughter, genuine, belly-deep laughter. I peeked in. Alistair was on the rug, building a complex tower with Leo. Leo was smiling, a radiant, toothy smile I had never seen directed at me. Alistair ruffled the boy's hair with an ease that shocked me. "You're doing great, champ," Alistair said, "just like I taught you." "Like the boat?" Leo asked. His voice was raspy. "Just like the boat," Alistair replied. I frowned. What boat? We didn't have a boat. We had never taken Leo on a boat. I pushed the door open, forcing a smile. Having fun without me? The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Leo stopped smiling and scrambled backward, away from Alistair. Alistair stood up, smoothing his suit jacket, his face composing itself into a mask of polite affection. "Just breaking the ice, darling," Alistair said smoothly. "Leo was telling me about a dream he had, about a boat." "I see," I said, though the knot in my stomach tightened. "Dinner is ready. Lasagna." Leo didn't look at me. He looked at Alistair, waiting for a signal. Alistair nodded imperceptibly. "Come on, Leo. Genevieve made dinner." Genevieve, not Mom, not even Mrs. Sterling, just Genevieve. The micro-conflicts started to pile up like dead leaves. A week later, Vanessa came for a home inspection. These visits were becoming frequent, too frequent. She would arrive unannounced, claiming she needed to check on Leo's emotional adjustment. I was in the kitchen, preparing tea, when I realized I had forgotten the sugar bowl. I walked back toward the living room, my footsteps silent on the thick Persian rugs. Vanessa was sitting on the sofa, her legs crossed elegantly. Alistair was standing by the fireplace, pouring 2 drinks. Not tea, scotch. "Ideally, we wrap this up by the 15th, Vanessa was saying. Her tone was businesslike, but her body language was relaxed, too comfortable. She had kicked off one of her heels. "The lawyers are slow," Alistair replied. "Genevieve is asking questions about the agency fees. She thinks $50,000 is high." "She can afford it," Vanessa scoffed. "She spends that on handbags." I froze in the hallway. $50,000? Alistair had told me the agency fee was $20,000. Why did he lie? And why was Vanessa talking about my finances with such disdain? I cleared my throat loudly before entering. The change in the room was instant. Vanessa slipped her shoe back on. Alistair turned, a dazzling smile plastered on his face. "Ah, there she is," Alistair said. "Darling, Vanessa was just telling me how well Leo is doing in school." "Really?" I asked, setting the tray down with a clatter. "Because his teacher called me today. She said he's been aggressive. He pushed another boy." Vanessa didn't flinch. "Trauma response," she said smoothly. "It's to be expected. He needs patience, Genevieve, not judgment." I felt the sting of her words. She made me feel like the villain in my own home. "I'm not judging," I defended myself. "I'm worried." "Leave the parenting strategy to the professionals, darling," Alistair said, placing a hand on my shoulder. His grip was firm, almost painful. "Vanessa knows best." That night, I couldn't sleep. The doubt was gnawing at me. I got up at 2 a.m., wandering the halls of the silent house. I found myself outside Leo's room. I wanted to check on him, to just watch him sleep, hoping to feel that connection I was so desperate for. I opened the door quietly. The nightlight cast a soft blue glow over the room. Leo was asleep, clutching something in his hand. I crept closer. It wasn't a teddy bear, it was a photograph. I gently tried to pry it from his fingers, but he stirred. I pulled back, my heart pounding. But the photo had slipped onto the pillow. I picked it up. It was a Polaroid, slightly faded. It showed a younger Alistair, maybe 5 years younger, on a boat. He was tanned, laughing, wearing swimming trunks. And wrapped around him, wearing a bikini and a captain's hat, was Vanessa. And sitting on Alistair's shoulders was a toddler with messy brown curls and dark, tunnel-like eyes. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. My knees gave way, and I sank to the floor. The pieces of the puzzle slammed together with the force of a freight train. The familiarity, the boat comment, the way Leo looked at Alistair, the way Vanessa looked at me. Leo wasn't an orphan, he was Alistair's son. And Vanessa, she wasn't a social worker, she was the mother. They were scamming me. They were bringing their illegitimate child into my home, making me pay for his upkeeping, making me adopt him so he would become an heir to my family fortune. Alistair was playing the devoted husband while moving his mistress and child right under my nose. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to run into the master bedroom and scream at Alistair until my throat bled. But I didn't. I remembered my father's advice, given to me years ago before he passed. "Genevieve, in this world, the person who loses their temper first loses the war. Be cold, be calculating, and never show your hand until you hold the knife." I put the photo back on the pillow, exactly where it had been. I stood up, wiped the cold sweat from my forehead, and walked out of the room. The next morning, I was the picture of domestic perfection. I made pancakes, I poured coffee, I kissed Alistair on the cheek. "You look rested," Alistair commented, slicing into his breakfast. "Did you sleep well?" "Like a baby," I lied. "I was thinking, Alistair, we should throw a party to celebrate the finalization of the adoption next week. Invite our friends, maybe some of your business partners, and Vanessa, of course. She's been so instrumental." Alistair exchanged a quick glance with his coffee cup. "A party? Do you think Leo is ready for that?" "I think it's time we stop hiding him," I said cheerfully. "I want to show him off. I want everyone to know he's a sterling." Alistair smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That's a wonderful idea, darling." For the next 3 days, I became a spy in my own life. I hired a private investigator, a man named Mr. Thorne, who operated out of a basement office in the city. I gave him Vanessa's name, or the name she was using, and the license plate of her car. I need everything, I told him, sliding an envelope of cash across the desk. Who she really is, where she lives. And I need a DNA test. DNA requires samples, Thorne grunted. I have them, I said. I placed a plastic bag on the desk. Inside was a hairbrush I had stolen from Vanessa's purse during her last visit, and a toothbrush I had taken from Leo's bathroom. I need to know if she is his mother, and I need to know if my husband is the father. You want the rush service? I want the yesterday service. While Thorne worked, I played the part. I took Leo shopping. I bought him a suit for the party. In the changing room, as I helped him with his tie, I looked at him in the mirror. He looked so much like Alistair, it was painful. I hadn't seen it before. The shape of the nose, the set of the jaw. Do you like Vanessa? I asked him casually, smoothing his collar. Leo stiffened. She's nice. She seems to know you very well, I probed gently. Did you know her before the agency? Leo's eyes widened. He looked terrified. Daddy said not to tell. My heart broke. Daddy? You mean Alistair? Leo nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. He said if I tell, the bad men will take me away. He said I have to pretend you're my mommy so we can stay in the big house. I dropped to my knees and hugged him. Not the fake hug of a stepmother trying too hard, but a hug of shared victimhood. This child was a pawn. He was being gaslit and manipulated just as much as I was. It's okay, Leo, I whispered into his ear. I'm not going to let the bad men take you, but you have to be brave for me. Can you be brave? He nodded against my shoulder. The day of the party arrived. The house was filled with fresh lilies. The smell was overwhelming, cloying. Waiters circulated with champagne. My friends, women in silk dresses and diamonds, cooed over the decorations. Alistair was in his element, holding court in the center of the room. Vanessa was there, wearing a dress that was far too expensive for a social worker's salary, a dress I realized, with a jolt, was from a designer Alistair had consulted for last year. Mr. Thorne had delivered the dossier an hour before the guests arrived. It was currently sitting in the safe in my office, burning a hole through the metal. The results were positive, 99.9% match. Alistair was the father. Vanessa, real name Veronica Miller, an ex-model with a history of fraud, was the mother, and the adoption agency? It was a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands, listing Alistair as the beneficiary. They weren't just tricking me into raising their son, they were embezzling my inheritance through fees and setting up a trust fund that they could drain the moment the papers were signed. I waited until the toast. Alistair tapped a spoon against his glass. The room fell silent. He put his arm around me, pulling me close. I could smell the scotch on his breath. Friends, family, Alistair began, his voice dripping with false sincerity. We are gathered here to celebrate a miracle. For years, Genevieve and I have prayed for a child, and finally, our prayers have been answered. Leo, come here, son. Leo walked out from the crowd, looking small and terrified in his little suit. Vanessa watched from the sidelines, a smug smile playing on her lips. To Leo, Alistair raised his glass, the newest sterling. To Leo, the crowd echoed. And to honesty, I said clearly. My voice rang out, cutting through the murmurs. Alistair looked down at me, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. Darling? I stepped away from his embrace. I walked over to the side table where I had placed a laptop connected to the large projection screen that was currently displaying our journey. I have a little surprise video, I announced, a tribute to how this family really came together. Vanessa took a step forward, her eyes narrowing. Genevieve, maybe this isn't the time? "Oh, it's exactly the time," I smiled. I hit play. But it wasn't a montage of baby photos. It was a recording I had made earlier that morning. I had found Alistair's burner phone, the one he thought was hidden in his golf bag. I had mirrored the screen. The projector lit up with text messages, massive, high-definition screenshots of conversations between Big A and V Honey. Message 1. The cow bought the sob story. She's decorating the nursery. It's pathetic. Message 2. Make sure Leo doesn't call me dad in front of her. One slip up and we lose the 5 million. Message 3. I can't wait until this is over and we can dump her at the asylum. She's so unstable, she'll believe anything. A collective gasp went through the room. The silence was absolute. Alistair turned pale. He looked at the screen, then at me. "Genevieve, this is a fabrication. Someone hacked." "Stop," I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly steady. "Just stop." I clicked the next slide. The DNA test results. Alistair Sterling, father. Veronica Miller, mother. I turned to the crowd. My husband isn't adopting an orphan. He's moving his mistress and his illegitimate son into my house on my dime while planning to have me committed to take control of my estate. Vanessa lunged for the laptop. "Turn it off, you crazy bitch!" 2 security guards I had hired specifically for this moment stepped out from the shadows and blocked her path. Alistair's charm evaporated, his face twisted into a snarl. "You think you're so smart, Genevieve. You're barren. You're empty. I gave you a purpose." "You gave me a crime scene," I retorted, "and I solved it." I pulled a thick envelope from my clutch. "This is a restraining order for both of you. You have 10 minutes to vacate my property before the police, who are currently waiting in the driveway, come inside to arrest you for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy." Alistair laughed, a desperate, manic sound. "You can't kick me out. This is my house." "Actually," I said, savoring the words, "it's my father's house. The prenup you signed, the one you didn't read closely because you were too arrogant, it has an infidelity clause, a moral turpitude clause. You leave with nothing, not a penny, not a car, not even the suit on your back if I really wanted to push it." He looked at the guests, his friends, his business partners. They were looking at him with disgust. The social mask had slipped, revealing the monster underneath. Alistair looked at Vanessa. She was already backing away, realizing the ship was sinking. "Leo," I said softly. The boy was standing in the middle of the room, tears streaming down his face. He looked between his father and me. "Leo, you have a choice," I said, though I knew it was a lie. Legally, I had no claim to him. He was their child, but I wanted him to know he was seen. "I am sorry they used you." Vanessa grabbed Leo's arm roughly. "We're leaving." "Don't you dare hurt him," I warned her, my voice dropping to a growl. "I will be watching. CPS has already been notified about your little scam. If I see one bruise on that boy, I will rain hellfire on you." Vanessa dragged Leo toward the door. Alistair stood there for a moment longer, staring at me with pure hatred. "You'll be lonely, Genevieve," he spat. "You'll rot in this big house all alone." "Better alone than sleeping with a snake," I replied. "Get out." He turned and fled, the jeers of the crowd following him. When the doors closed, the adrenaline crashed. My knees buckled. My best friend, Eleanor, caught me before I hit the floor. "It's over," she whispered. "You did it!" The house was quiet again that night. The guests had left. The staff was cleaning up the shattered glass. I walked into the nursery. It was empty. The bed was unmade. The vintage rocking horse stood still in the corner. It hurt. God, it hurt. I had wanted a child so badly. I had wanted Leo to be mine, but not like this. Not as a stolen piece of another woman's life. Not as a tool for extortion. I sat in the rocking chair and looked out the window at the rain. Alistair was right about one thing. The house was big. It was empty. But as I took a deep breath, I realized something. The air didn't smell like his cologne anymore. It didn't smell like lies. It smelled of rain and lavender and freedom. I picked up the phone. I dialed the number of a legitimate adoption agency, one I had researched myself without Alistair's help. "Hello?" a kind voice answered. "Hello?" I said, wiping a tear from my cheek. "My name is Genevieve. I have a lot of love to give, and I have a big house that needs noise. I'd like to start the process, for real this time." That was 6 months ago. The divorce is still messy, but Alistair is fighting a losing battle from a public defender's office. Vanessa is facing jail time for fraud. Leo is in foster care, but I have petitioned for visitation. I don't know if the system will allow it, but I send him letters every week. I tell him he is good, that he is brave, and that none of this was his fault. I learned the hard way that desperation can make you blind. I wanted to be a mother so badly that I ignored the instinct screaming at me. But I also learned that I am stronger than I thought. I stood up to the man who controlled my life for a decade, and I won. Ladies, listen to your gut. If something feels wrong, if the story is too perfect, if the social worker is too comfortable, if your husband whispers in the hallway, listen. Don't let your desire for happiness blind you to the reality of disrespect. You are worth more than being someone's ATM machine. Now, I have a question for you all. I still struggle with guilt over Leo. I sent him away with his parents because I had to get them out, but I feel like I abandoned him to the wolves. If you were in my shoes, would you have tried to keep the boy immediately, even if it meant keeping the husband and the mistress in your life during a legal battle? Or did I do the right thing by cutting the cancer out instantly? Please tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If this story touched you, or if you've ever had to fight for your own truth, please hit that like button. It helps more women find this channel. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you never miss a confession. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and never let anyone dim your light.